I want to say thank you so much to our guest, Ravi Chadha, who is out in Vancouver right now. Hi, Ravi. Thank you again.
Hi. How is everybody today? Okay, so I guess what we're going to talk about today is basically what, for real estate. Okay, so just a general background here. I actually came into Canada in about 1977, and over the last years since I've been here, there's been only one time we've had a really prolonged downturn in the real estate market, and that was back around 82, 81, 82 till about 84. As you can see, the interest rates at that time peaked out at 21.46. So since then, we see the interest rates have been steadily going down, and in fact, we're at an all-time low today. So, as I was mentioning, the interest rate spiked back in the early 80s at 21.46. This caused great problems for people paying mortgages, and prices did go down there for a period of a couple of years, but then they soon picked up, and since then, we've seen a constant increase in real estate prices, and interest rates are at an all-time low today, which is really helping the market. One of the questions that was asked is, how does this compare to the Japanese market real estate collapse? Well, the thing is, Corona and what happened with the Japanese market are two separate things. The Japanese market was more of a squeeze, a financial squeeze, while Corona is more of a health concern, and people are scared to go out, people are scared to go work, and so on. And this is a very unique time because we've never experienced something like this since we've been keeping real estate data here. So comparatively, it's a different type of problem issue and the problem that we are facing. However, over the years, now this is the chart you see in front of you now is the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver's chart, HPI index. As you can see, the market was trending downwards towards the end of 2019, and it started picking up at spring. Part of this is seasonal, and as we got into the new year, market prices climbed, and then Corona hit, and things flattened out, and of course, back in March, basically everything came to a standstill. Part of the problem was we were not, as realtors, not allowed to show properties. We didn't know the liability behind what would happen if we showed and somebody got sick. So basically, everything got turned off. The government implanted, tenancy protection. So you couldn't show tenanted properties. So those properties came off the market. So that actually helped in many ways because it reduced the inventory and increased, while there was still interest in buying in Canada. Canada seemed to have dealt with the recession or the COVID question quite well. In May, government added liquidity. They reduced interest rates. They allowed homeowners to defer mortgages. Of course, there was programs such as the CERB implemented that added stability, and rental assistance programs were also available. This was great because it kept people financially secure. At least they were able to put food on their table and manage their day-to-day affairs. Currently, what I'm seeing right now is, people are, of course, with the economy working more from home, or students are even studying from home, and September being the key month, we don't know if kids will be going back to school. What that's what that's going towards is that people need more space and they need um, more room to work at. And there's a desire for outdoor space. So people living in apartments are wanting to move to bigger units, such as townhomes with yards, or people in townhomes are wanting to move to detached homes with more space. We are seeing a little bit more inventory come online as people are getting confident that they are able to mitigate some of the risks associated with Corona. And so looking ahead, we're looking that businesses are opening. Food retail is still slow. Those two industries are suffering, as well as travel. But people are getting used to taking precautions, wearing masks, and moving around. The expectation right now is, if you believe Mr. Trump, we'll have a vaccine very soon. But realistically, I think it's more towards the end of the year or next year. Once the vaccine is in place, I expect immigration to continue, and this will be a great driving factor for demand, housing demand in Canada, and I expect the market to be very, very strong once Canada opens up again. So at this time, I'm just going to do a sort of walk you through a sort of a buyer's presentation. Well, why would you rent? I think with the way the economy is right now, it's not a bad idea to be renting, even though I have intrinsic value for putting in a home. But we see that the rental market is quite weak. People who were doing Airbnbs, people who were renting to students are having difficulty renting out their suites as well as their apartments. So we are finding more availability for rental units in Vancouver and Toronto. Therefore, rents are coming down slowly. And so there is a case made for people who wish to continue renting. I would suggest if you want to rent, the key reasons would be to have the flexibility to move around, to change jobs. And if you're renting in a location where, buying is way more expensive than to be renting.
We have a question from one of the audience. I think it's a normal thing for younger people within their 20s and 30s feeling like that they won't ever be able to buy a property, especially in Canada. Do you have any advice for those people, and what are ways that they can achieve that, if they should achieve that, or if renting is a better option?
Yeah, I would definitely. If you're planning to stay in one location a long time, I would say yes, you should be buying. Real estate is always a great investment. Land will appreciate as it's a limited resource. It allows you to leverage your dollars. So what that means is basically with a small down payment, and the bank will lend you a large amount of money. And if we look at a 2% increase in property value per year, you're not making the 2% on your down payment, you're making it on the full amount. So just to keep sort of round numbers, let's say we're looking at a property of $500,000. If you put $100,000 down and you borrow $400,000, you're making 2% on the $500,000. This is a very simplified calculation, but as opposed to making 2% on $100,000, right? So and at the same time, you are paying off your debt, your mortgage, and you have a roof over your head. So one of the big advantages in Canada is that when your personal home appreciates, you can sell it with tax free. So any other asset you are going.
The audience member is planning to buy a second house, but they heard that if they have two houses and then they sell one in the future, they're gonna have to pay more on taxes. Well, why is that? Is there any way to avoid that?
Well, they would because they own two homes. They would the home that they're not living in, they would have to pay capital gains tax on. Is that what you're asking?
I guess so. So basically, you would not have to pay capital gains tax on your primary residence. Just your.
That's correct. Yeah,
All
your
right.
primary residence you do not have to. But any investment property is subject to capital gains tax.
And how much is that? What percentage is that tax usually?
Well, it's 50% of it would be taxed. So basically, what they do is they take the amount earned and add it onto your income for that year, and then depending on what tax rate you fall into, that's what the amount of tax you'll pay.
So it's just an additional income tax in a way then. Basically.
Yeah. So basically, the earnings 50% of your profit will be added to your annual income. And that will be your total income, and then based on what tax category you're in, you'll pay tax according to that.
Okay. And are there different rules for, let's say, new immigrants or an international buyer, a non-Canadian citizen, when it comes to buying property within Canada?
Well, non-Canadian. They would be subject to foreign buyer's tax and so on, depending on where they're buying. So they really should consult somebody locally in the location that they are planning to buy in. There is, so for non-Canadians, there are certain categories and rules. So depending on the amount of investment and location, different rules apply. So I would suggest for them to talk to, choose the area that they are planning to invest in and talk to somebody who's an expert in that location. For Canadians or landed immigrants, there's lots of incentives. The best way for somebody starting out in life, I would say, is put as much money as you can in an RRSP, because the Canadian government allows you to withdraw up to $35,000 per person, tax free, in order to buy or build a qualifying home. The advantage is you put the money in RSPs, it accumulates tax free inside your RSPs until you achieve hopefully $35,000 or more. And then you can withdraw that and invest into a property.
What counts as a qualifying home?
Sorry?
What counts as a qualifying home?
Well, any home that you are buying for your personal needs is basically what would qualify it. So it has to be your principal residence. So it's not something that you buy to rent out. It would be something that you would buy to live in. Mm-hmm. So there are other incentives as well. There's an equity share program, which is called basically the first time home buyers incentive through the federal government. Basically, in this program, the government will give 5 to 10% of your down payment, and you become, quotes, partners with the federal government in your home. A new home will qualify up to 10%, while a lived-in home will be 5%. This allows you to get into a home sooner with a lower payment. So if you have 10% down and you can't quite make it, you can take another 5% from the federal government. So it becomes 15% down, therefore reducing your mortgage payments. The critical piece of information here is that the family income must be less than $120,000. This poses a big problem for major cities such as Vancouver and Toronto, because generally you can only borrow 3 times your family income. So in this case, your maximum amount to borrow would be 360, which doesn't buy much in these two cities, unfortunately. So it's very limited, but it might be good for somebody as a starting out in somewhere else. In addition, when you buy the year you buy a home, you get a $5,000 non-refundable tax credit, which equates to about $750 refund on your tax for that year.
And that's every year, or just for that first year of buying the property?
That's the year that you buy the property, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And then, so there are GST and HST rebates available as well. So you get a full rebate. You get buy property for $350,000 or less, and a partial rebate. Well, basically on a declining scale between $350,000 to $450,000. Again, it's the amounts are very low, as you know, Toronto and Vancouver or Lower Mainland are, the prices are sometimes a bit higher for new properties. Provincial programs are also available. BC has a first-time home buyers program, which gives you a rebate of basically property a transfer tax rebate, or you don't have to pay. In Ontario, there's a tax transfer refund, which covers up houses up to $368 and $368,333, and the maximum amount refund is $4,000. In the Toronto area, there's also a land transfer rebate that you can apply for $44.75. So there are things that can help somebody get into the market. Generally, the minimum down payment that you need to save up is 5%, and then you do need to get mortgage default insurance. There's basically three big companies that do the mortgage default insurance. It's the CHMC, Canada Mortgage Housing Corporation, Genworth, and Guarantee Mortgage Insurance Companies. So three of them. They do charge for it, and it can add between 0.6 to 0.35% to the cost of the mortgage. Any purchase over $1 million will require 20% down, but you are able to buy property below $1 million with 5%.
So with the 20% down, that's if you were to put 10% of your own money and then use that the buyer's that other benefit that you or the government puts 5 to 10% in without count.
Yeah, those benefits are based on the value of the property and your income. But yeah, I mean, you won't receive any of those benefits once you go over, say, the 500,000 mark, because they're really meant for first-time buyers. And you're looking at, as I mentioned, let's just go back a bit here. You're limited by your income here of 120,000. Maximum you can borrow is 3 times against that. These are sort of ballpark figures.
Yeah.
So with 360,000 plus your 10% or 20%, would limit you to say a property around 400,000, give or take.
So that basically, that wouldn't really help someone in the Toronto, Vancouver markets at all.
No, you could. It's very you could probably get a 1-bedroom or maybe a studio at best. I would say, in these in the Greater Vancouver or Greater Toronto area. But yeah, it is the limits are a bit low compared to where the market has gone. So yeah, unfortunately, the government programs are a bit more conservative than they should be.
Mm-hmm.
So we've discussed the minimum down payment. So there's basically in Canada there's 4 types of ownership. So when you get into a property, you need to you'll discuss with your realtor what type of property it is, and when you're pricing it, you'll price it accordingly as well. So most common, what most people would like is a freehold property. So in this case, you own the land and you own the house, and you're basically responsible for anything inside and outside. Now, in certain complexes, there's also leasehold. So this could be a lease for up to 99 years. You see these type of leasehold properties in, let's say, universities like Simon Fraser University or UBC has many apartments built on it. They would be on a lease property. So you actually own the building. So it's a condominium. So it's a mixture of these two, where the land is actually owned. Not by yourself, but you do own the condo millennium on there. But after 99 years, the land reverts back to the owner unless you renew. A lot of native land is in this sort of area where if you purchase on native land, it would be on a lease. It does reduce, I guess, the cost of land itself because you don't own it. But it does, it's not perpetually owned by yourself, which freehold would be. Condominiums, townhouses, if you want. These are very common, where you own your unit and then you own a certain share of the common space. In this, pay a monthly fee, often known as a strata fee, for maintenance for the common area as well as the outside of the building. The third one is cooperatives. These are very popular. It's very difficult to get into it, co-ops, because basically you own shares of the whole complex. So it's not like the condominium where you actually own your condominium inside and out. Where in this one it's more of a, you own shares of a company, for example, and you get to use a certain amount of space based on your shares. Do you understand? Is that clear?
So are there fees involved with owning these shares, like strata fees as well, or not?
Yes, there will be a monthly fee because all of these require maintenance, and somebody has to maintain the outside of the building as well as put money away for future repairs such as roofs, plumbing systems, etc. in the common areas and so on. So both condominiums and cooperatives will have a monthly fee involved. They can be quite expensive, so you definitely need to take into account the monthly fees when you look into the cost of ownership.
So, what's the benefit of a cooperative over a condo?
There is really no benefit to a cooperative. Usually cooperatives are cheaper to get into. You'll find cooperatives are priced much lower than condos because you do not have the right of owning your own unit. Cooperatives, they have a board which has to approve you to own in the building, and if you do decide to rent out the unit, it has to be approved by the board as well. So I would not recommend cooperative purchase at all. But like I said, they are sometimes very reasonable to get into because of the restrictions as compared to one of the other condominiums. So in condominiums, there are also restrictions because there will be rules that the strata imposes. So when you purchase that, your realtor will go over those rules and regulations with you. And you have to make sure you're comfortable with them.
Would those be rules related to having pets or?
Yeah, you'd have restrictions as far as how many pets you can have, perhaps what the size of the pets is. Possibly there could be restrictions as far as rentals, how many rentals units, or if you're allowed to rent. Depending on the age of the building, the different rules that will apply. There'll be the regular rules as well as far as noise and barbecues and so on. If you're allowed to have barbecues on your balconies or not. So definitely the rules and regulations is a document that you must go over before purchasing any condo.
I see. We have another question from an audience member. What kind of credit score do they need to buy a home?
Unfortunately, that I can't answer. That would be a better question for a mortgage broker or for the lending institution that they deal with. It really depends what other assets I guess they would be able to provide. I would suggest them to talk to their bank, or if they don't have a bank or a mortgage broker, in order to get pre-qualified. That would be the first step in any purchase. You should go get pre-qualified before you even start down this road.
I see.
So let's say you go out there and you find you're interested in purchasing something. One of the things that you need to have would be up-to-date identification. Canada has very strict laws, so financial information is tracked. As you know, you can't, walk around with $10,000 or more cash. So you would have to have up-to-date legal identification. The second thing that you should have is at least 5% of the purchase price ready. So this could be your total down payment, but normally when we write a contract, there's a deposit that has to be paid once, and that deposit most of the time is 5%. It could be more, it could be less, but 5% is the general rule at this point. Now, when you do make an offer, you should understand it is a legally binding agreement. So, if once you do sign that paper and it is accepted, then those terms are agreed upon, and that is a legally binding agreement. So you must understand that. So you just can't go around and write offers and try to trust out people. Deal?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are sorry? Oh, I was just going to ask you a question about inspections and what's maybe a common issue that people buying an older house might deal with, and to be aware of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, home inspection definitely is one of the conditions that you should have whenever you buy a home. Regardless if it's new or older, I've seen even newer homes have issues. Even though they've just been built, it's always a good idea to get an independent home inspection done. Issues can be, they're really unlimited. I mean, older homes, you could be looking at asbestos in the ceiling. You could be looking at plumbing issues, electrical issues. water ingress issues. So definitely, you do need to get a home inspector who can thoroughly go through it, make sure he's licensed or he or she is licensed, and bonded to go through that. Normally what ends up happening is if you do fall in love with a home and you get a home inspection done and the inspector does find some issues, you just go back and you can either negotiate those issues, you can get a price reduction, or perhaps you can get the repairs done. Generally you can work it out. It's not, the end of the world if you find something wrong with the home. It's you just have to know what it is and how to deal with it. Other costs, of course, are legal fees and appraisals. So when you buy a home, the bank will send an appraiser in to make sure that the home is worth what you're paying for it. They do this to make sure that their money is, of course, secure as well. Now, most of the time, these appraisal fees are absorbed right into the mortgage amount, and you don't have to pay for them, but there may be a remote chance that you may be asked to pay. The other thing is insurance. You do need home insurance, and there's different types of home insurance you can purchase. The other thing the bank may push you at is to buy mortgage insurance. I would suggest you probably don't buy mortgage insurance, but instead, if you have life insurance, you should buy life insurance, because mortgage insurance only insures the mortgage, while when you buy life insurance, it insures you. So I would definitely look into that and speak to a qualified insurance agent. So there's other smaller items. A lot of these the notary would calculate for you when you purchase a home. So title insurance, service fees, interest rate adjustment, tax adjustment. So usually property taxes, depending on where you live, are paid, might have been prepaid by the previous owner. So you may owe for the balance of the year. So that would be calculated by your lawyer or notary, and you'd have to pay for that. Then there's, obviously when you move, you're going to have to hook up your utilities, your cable, whatever. There might be some moving costs involved in that. If you don't time your move properly, you may need to store your items somewhere before you get possession of your new home. Okay. And then, of course, whenever you move into any place, you probably want to decorate, buy new furniture, buy new appliances. So there's stuff that goes on.
Our question. It is: would there be any change in price to get life insurance and then buy a property?
Well, life insurance is bought. It's based on your age and your health, right? So there's no, you want to, what the price I guess you're comparing it to mortgage insurance. Is that what you're comparing?
I guess so.
Yeah. The life insurance is like normal life insurance. I mean, you go to an insurance agent and just get yourself approved for an amount that is sufficient to cover the mortgage.
Okay. Let's see.
Anything else? Or any other questions? Okay. So, that's basically the information for buyers. Now, you may be in a position where you're trying to sell a home or, upgrade. During this time, there are some challenges. Obviously, we want to reduce the amount of people coming into a home. So safety is the biggest issue. As a realtor, I really have to be wary about who goes into a house and their behavior in there. We have to be watchful of tenants and tenants' rights. Tenants do have the right to refuse entry into the unit in BC anyway at this time, if they feel unsafe for any reason. So we try to limit the amount of physical visits to the property by using technology. We provide, on every listing I provide full plans. We get professional photography, we do videos, and we do what we call a Matterport walkthrough. So that is basically a virtual way of walking through the homes.
So right now, would you say it's more of a seller's market or a buyer's market?
It depends on the price range you're at. And where you're located. If you're in the condominium sort of price range, or I should say the condominium market, there's a lot more availability. People are trying to get out of one bedrooms or two bedrooms and moving into townhouses or single detached, as I mentioned. Mm-hmm. In the condominium in Vancouver, anyway, in the Lower Mainland, it is more of a buyer's market. As you move to single detached, it becomes a very balanced, leading towards a seller's market. People are wanting to move away from properties that involve sharing elevators. I mean, if you're living on the 44th floor and only two people are allowed in the elevator, it could take you some time to get up there. Right?
Yeah. We have another question from an audience member. They want to know which would be a better investment, a cooperative, a condo, or a hotel apartment. Which would be better in terms of investment?
Investment?
Yeah.
So you said a cooperative, a condo, and what was the last one?
A hotel apartment.
Hotel apartment.
Mm-hmm.
I would say a condo would be better. Hotel apartments. I mean, you are fine, but they're more of a commercial sort of application because the hotel manages and rents out the property for you. They may guarantee a return to you. You'd have to look at the contract itself. But as an individual owner, I would definitely say go for a condominium over a cooperative. Cooperatives are very, not a great investment because the cooperative board has to approve your tenant, has to approve you as well. So there's a lot of restrictions in cooperatives. So I would say, given those three choices, I would go with the condominium.
And what about a home instead?
Sorry?
Like a house.
A house.
Yes.
Well, the house is the best, of course. Yeah. I'm a strong believer in owning your own house. Free. It's you own the land, you own the house. You can paint it whatever color you want. You've got a lot more freedom in the use of the property.
Mm-hmm.
So, but obviously the price range for a house, is going to be a lot more than for somebody with contract.
So yeah. Then there's another question, and it's asking if it's better to have a realtor for a first purchase. They've heard that without a realtor, the price might change 1% to 2% less.
I would say you should always have a realtor representing you.
A realtor would say that, wouldn't they?
I mean, I know, I mean, if you're trying to, now, obviously we don't know how this, we're talking, if you like in BC, you have a realtor that represents the seller, so the person who would list the property. And then as a buyer, you should have a realtor representing yourself, because the advantage to it is, other than the price, there are other things that need to be looked at. As I mentioned, the inspection and so on. If you were to go directly to the owner, you may not be aware of what else is out there as far as other properties, for example, so you limit your choice. Secondly, you if you go to the listing agent directly, he is working for the owner, and not in your best interest. So when you're writing an offer, it's a legally binding contract, and you want to make sure that your rights are protected. So you need to have a realtor protecting your rights, and getting the inspections done and advising you with regards to the price. That's the way I would say. I would not. It's like going to court and not having your own lawyer and using the other party's lawyer to present your case. So definitely you need to have your own realtor.
But does it affect the price or not really?
Does it affect the price?
Mm-hmm.
No, it shouldn't. A good realtor will negotiate the best price for you. It should not have the price. I think a lot of people feel that it does, but in reality, I think the comfort that you get, it's much better. Otherwise you're trusting somebody else, and 1 to 2% is the amount that's mentioned. Possibly, that is not a huge amount when you're coming to buying a property and you don't do your due diligence properly. You could end up paying a lot more later.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody has not gone through. So, for example, there's certain buildings that have issues, and the owner may not declare those issues, but a realtor may know that these buildings have issues and may advise you buying against it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
And then someone is asking. They said, I know this is a personal choice, however, I still want to ask and get your thoughts. Living in a condo within the downtown city or go out to the city and living in a house, how does price appreciation occur?
That's an interesting question, especially during this time. Traditionally, like for the last 10 years, we had this move towards centralization, people going downtown, wanting to be living and working downtown, partying, and so on. But with COVID, we've seen the reverse, where people are actually moving out and moving into a house, wanting to have more space. So it really depends on the times. During these times, I would say going a little bit outside, being a bit more comfortable is better for you in the long run.
Would you see a bigger price increase with the condo or with the home?
The price increase again depends. It's very difficult to speculate on that. It really depends on the location and the demand in that area. So a condo downtown, a train, easy transit, easy access to things, versus say a home that is a little bit more remote. Let's say if they're equally priced, I think they would appreciate probably more or less the same. The key would be to the location. Even if you buy a home outside, you want to make sure that it has easy transportation or easy access to highways or so on. If we're looking in the future, if we're just purely speculating and we're looking at this work from home economy, digital economy where people are only going offices once a week or even less, then moving forward, I would be more inclined to buy something outside as opposed to something in the downtown core and get more space.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Are there any more questions from the audience? We'll take our final questions and your final remarks as well. Thanks again for coming and talking to us about this. I know the market's hot right now. You're probably very busy. So, there's another question, and they asked if they could have, if they were allowed to have more than one realtor, especially when they're new to the market.
Okay. So can you work with more than one realtor? Yes, of course you can. You can work with as many realtors as you want. However, most realtors may, depending on where you are, may want to get you into what we call a buyer's contract, which means that you would have to commit to them. You should, if you're a few realtors, I would say get comfortable with one you trust. I think you probably need to interview a minimum of 3 people before you start working with somebody. Suggest that eventually you will have to commit to somebody. I mean, somebody's going to spend a lot of time and effort showing you a property and advising you, so you should commit to one person eventually. Great. Okay.
And another question is, what would be your suggestion regarding the oldest age for a person with minimum down payment to buy a property?
Minimum. Well, it really comes down to your ability to pay the mortgage amount and if the bank will qualify you. Most mortgages are paid between 25 to 30 years. So I would say, you shouldn't, it's more of a question of your, how confident are you and how confident the lending institution would be in lending you the money that you would be able to repay the money. So age is really not a factor. I mean, people buy property, 60, 70 years old. It's just more of the reason to buy and why do you, want to buy it when you're at that age as well as an investment or to live in.
And then this question connects back to the previous question, but how does someone establish trust with a real estate agent when they're new to the market? I guess, what are some questions you would ask a real estate agent when you're interviewing them?
How do you establish trust? Well, trust it's a human thing. I think again, when you meet somebody, you form a bond with them. Are they able to answer your questions honestly, and you trust their advice? I mean, it's no different than going to a doctor or any other service provider. You have to have that ability to communicate with them, and you have to be, you have to be able to be honest with each other. They have to be open to your needs and acknowledging your needs in order to advise you for the correct property. So it's you have to perhaps meet them a couple times, see how they behave, what their behavior are, and make a decision accordingly.
Mm-hmm. The question is, will are there realtors that sell something or propose stuff that would be more beneficial for them? Like if the selling and buying realtors knew each other and we're just kind of working, I guess, behind their back to get something off the market.
Well, officially, I would say no, because the realtor should be working in your best interest. So your realtor should be working in your best interest at all times. However, having said that, people are humans, and they will also work towards their own benefit as well. But a licensed realtor, a reputable realtor, will not do that. They will work towards your benefit, as whether you're a seller or a buyer. They are legally bound to work for your best interest in mind.
All right, yeah. Any other final questions before we wrap things up? I don't think so. All right, well, thanks again for being on here. And if anyone has any more questions for Ravi, we'll send his email and his website in the chat afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.